Mr. John Bailey, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Good morning. How are you?
I'm in kind of a rare mood. Let's first do an audio check here. I've got a boom mic in front of my face and I just want to make sure it's not coming off too loud or too harsh.
No, I mean it sounds pretty like
Sounds good?
subtle. Yeah, it sounds clean, crisp, subtle. It's
Okay. Excellent.
not too boomy. It's all good.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, you're sounding good too. So we're good in the audio check department. Yeah, I'm in kind of a rare mood. Like a lot of us, I've been really sucking up artificial intelligence, right? Like I'm either using it or I'm listening to a podcast about it or I'm reading an article about it or I'm talking to a colleague like you about AI. And I don't know, I think I'm getting too the psychologists probably have a name for it, right? Like I'm at some saturation point where I'm just like totally mind blown and confused and between the utopian fanboys and the doomers and the haters, like it's hard to find reality.
Yeah, I'd say there's definitely a lot of it out there at any corner you look, and or at least in our I don't know, let's say business conversations or professional conversations where most people are talking about it, curious about it, adopting it,
Yeah.
integrating it in some way, or and then of course if you use it in your daily practice, like yourself or even me, yeah, you can't really get away from it. I think like anything, I think social media, at some point became this new hot thing, and it was really cool to be on Facebook and Instagram for hours of a day.
Right.
And there was, probably the same amount of, I think, counter news to that, which is, it's rotting your brain and you're not getting anything done and procrastination. But I think,
Yeah, yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it still happens, right? Like if it's not them two, it's like whack a mole. Then it's the next one. It's TikTok. It's this. It's that. It's news. It's media. And it's like I think I learned. I have to think that big upending stop in 2020 because it gave me some clarity, right? Like I realized with all the time I could have in a day, and I'm thankful that I had a profession at the time that didn't require me to be a first responder, which thank you for those people that did that, and
Right.
or be necessity in that sense, that I just got to do the thing I do every day, which is be at home and continue working. I mean, yes, client work dried up and projects became a little interesting, but for the most part nothing really changed in my world, but seemingly I had much more time on my hands. And I just remember, and I have to equate it to this, like there's just it's just a fire hose of just media and
Yeah.
news and people's opinions and counter opinions, and then we going through political year, same as we are now. And so it's like I sometimes am like, all right, what's the pattern? Maybe
The gap gets filled,
yeah, it's
it's
getting
like
filled. Yeah, and so I found that just finding going back to some old Pomodoro type mechanisms, time blocking. What I allow
right.
myself to really absorb. It really helps. I think that's probably the only thing I can offer here is that
I
I
mean,
found a good routine in that.
yeah, it's not your fault, it's not my fault, it's not our neighbor's fault
No.
that information is coming in. Well, the analogy we used to use was fire hose, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
no, this is more like standing under Niagara Falls. Like, okay,
Okay. Yeah.
no, it really is. And so you have to be very careful how you filter that Niagara Falls, right? Like,
Yeah.
because you can't drink all of it. But you got to drink or you're going to die, and you're not going to prosper in your career, and you're not going to help your employers or your clients. Like, you got to. And I understand the critics of AI who say it's moving too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like going faster than normal human evolution, whatever the heck that is, right? Like, what's normal? Taking a club and beating an animal over the head so we can put it over the fire. I mean, like Neanderthals or something. Like, so I don't even know what this normal pace talk is. But yeah, so we got AI here, and it's causing well. you and I both like terse communications,
Hmm.
and I've been thinking about it, and I've been trying to take it down to one word, just one word. How the heck do you do that? Well, it's because artificial intelligence is two words. Like it doesn't even go to one. And I thought, no, the word right now is disruption, right?
Hmm.
It's just and everything else we're talking about falls under disruption. People freaking out about the red-eyed robots taking over, people freaking out that they're not going to have a job in 2 to 5 years because AI took their job, and now it's a $150 payment to open AI instead of a, $65,000 employee. like,
Yeah.
I yeah, there's a lot of reality to all of that, but it all comes under the heading of disruption, I think.
It is disruption, absolutely. And I think it's the old human experience as well. I think people they're in the unknown. It's rapidly moving fast, and I believe that there's a quote, and I'm gonna bash his name, but Eupedes, yeah, one of the Stoics, right? And there was like the wise are always moderate because excess is the enemy of wisdom. And I think in that it makes complete sense that you know, to stay at a place where you have clarity and understanding around something, you got to kind of like it's like the Niagara Falls scenario because it is happening at that hundreds and thousands of gallons per second scenario. That you step in, you get a little bit, and you step out. And I think
Yeah,
because when you
yeah.
step out, you can get clarity, you can absorb the information, you can make some rational thoughts around it. I think in those the fear mongering and or the heinous conversations around AI and what it's going to do, and it's all around unknown, and it tells me that people are still very afraid of technology, afraid of the thing that that they're thanking it in the morning when they have a Keurig machine or something that's very simple and automated and solves their problem in record time. But when it comes to then like, oh well, what is the next evolution of that, right? Like that there's a robot waiting for me with the coffee when I wake up and my alarm goes off. Oh no, like that's what you've always wanted. This is what we've been
Yeah,
told.
yeah, I hear you. I hear you big time because I thought to myself the other day that I'm seeing these kind of scaremongering headlines,
Hmm.
these kind of frightening headlines, and if you take them at face value, even from reputable sources like the New York Times or The Verge or Engadget, they can be a little intimidating. And I'm like, wait a second, I stuff I grew up watching in the 1970s, like the Jetsons and such, we could not get enough technology. We could not get enough automation. And now that we're finally actually sort of getting it, everybody's just freaking out. Sorry, I had to think of something that didn't involve curse words when I said that, because it's
Yeah,
really, yeah, because I'm challenged by this whole thing. I really am, and that maybe that's the definition of mind blown. We all like to hashtag mind blown. Whatever.
yeah.
But like this is really some back to disruption, right? It's very disruptive, and it's affecting all of us, right? Like that's the one thing that I kind of like about it, quite honestly, is
Mhm.
that if you're top of the food chain, bottom of the food chain, somewhere in the middle, like most of us, whatever country you're from, whatever socioeconomic segment you're from, this is going to affect you. And the only thing that I can say with cocky assurance is that if you stick your head in the sand, you don't have to be totally obsessed by it like John and I. But if you
Yeah.
stick your head in the sand, you are going to suffer for that, right? And
Mhm.
as I've said in many of the articles that I've published, that it's not going to be AI taking over your job. It's going to be another human being who's better at using AI to be more efficient and more productive. They're going to take your job.
I mean, that's spot on because yeah, I think you're right. And then there's going to be, and I don't even think it's head in the sand, right? I think that there's people that there's still a market for the planner, like a spiral planner that has all those tabs that weighs like 40 pounds.
Ouch, you're hurting my
And,
brain. You're really,
but,
no, seriously.
but there's still those people that have something that has been worldly improved over time, and that's something like it's as simple as your calendar,
I,
your date calendar,
yeah,
your
yeah.
contacts,
Three,
all
yeah.
your appointments, everything, and holidays, birthdays, you name it. It's all
3M,
it's
yeah.
all being
3M probably
subsidized to
sells
this 6 by 4,
$40 million worth of those
and
post-it notes. Yeah.
yet there's still people. There's still an industry for exactly post-it notes, planners, pens, big pens, big pens and pencils, and it's because you know what? It's okay. Like there's an adoption rate. There's some people that just
Which
prefer.
is good
No, it's still there's a balance. It says that
because
the old
options are
system.
good.
Well, it says the
Options
old
are
system
good,
didn't
right?
work. It says the old system wasn't broken either, right? That's not what we're. AI is not going to. I think the biggest fear that everybody has is like it's gonna wipe out like this like labor jobs and all this, and it's like no, there's it's if anything it's a compliment, it's a acclamation of it. It's bigger than that and yet still very small. It takes, and I think that when people want to jump in the conversation or they join a chat like ours or something that we're find some dilution in it, find something that like is just speaking straight to the facts and not big words like autonomous agents. Like I don't even know that, like I wouldn't know what
Without
that means.
explaining what autonomous agents are, right? Like
Yeah.
this is deep science.
It,
This is some of the deepest science. I've been a technical writer for over 30 years, and this is some of the deepest stuff I've ever gotten into. I'm like,
yeah.
oh
Yeah.
boy, it's deep. Yeah,
Mind
it's
you, I
good.
don't profess to know, everything about, quantum physics or fission and fusion that we talked about, two episodes ago. I don't. If I went into that world, there'd be a slew of words that I wouldn't know either, or ways of attributing some kind of information and knowledge to it. So it's like with anything, there's going to be that first initial kind of like, oh, what is this, and what's it going to do, and
Right,
I think that this thing is just I think it's over time anyways. AI is not this it is new, I think to the consumer, to everybody in
right.
the
To the
sphere of
masses. Yeah,
but it's not new. And we've been doing it
that's
for a
right.
long time, and if anything it was very painful in the past and it was very limited, this quantum computing, this new way of fractions of a
Hmm.
second information being traveled and recalled and diluted and created at the same time is this is a new thing. But like I said, like I think that the more that people understand that it really is helping in some ways, and I think it also what did I saw a headline, and I'm gonna have to search it or somebody can search it, but about how AI helped one of these banks or companies recover $4.9 million in like fraud. Like it's
Oh,
that kind of thing.
nice, nice.
Yeah,
I love that because
it's that
that
kind of
comes
stuff.
under that's efficiency, right?
Yeah.
That's being better at what your stated goal is, right? And if I was a financial institution, I'd be wanting to track down those fraudsters every day because they're costing me billions of dollars and they're reducing shareholder and stakeholder value, right?
Even depending on the product or where that is, the consumer too. A lot of times
Exactly.
inflated costs because of fraud, because of recalls, because a lot of stuff. It makes our goods and services cost more money. So the more money we can
Exactly.
find that we're not wasting or we can recover, the better it is for the consumer as well. Because now that when that quarterly line hits and they look at their annual reviews and they look at their numbers, they're not going to immediately go to a place where they got to raise the price because now they're like, wait, we found a way to recoup those funds. We don't have to make the customer feel that impact. And I think things like that is like that's solving real problems, and that's superhero level stuff. Like humans, we are still at the pace of technology and information.
Right.
We are at a limitation. We can't computate at that level, or some can. Like we're talking a marginal few, can do that kind of stuff. And so this is where it
Right.
steps in. This is where it becomes a tool and a complement to our existence to and honestly take a we've been hard at work for I don't know, let's say 100 plus years, hard at work, with the industrial revolution and now technology and just overall keeping up with the pace of how rapid we are evolving.
I
um
agree. I mean, look at all these bridges. Holy
Yeah,
shit! Who made all these bridges?
buildings that I mean, just I was driving. Where was I?
Somebody was working hard. Our
I was in LA,
grandparents were
downtown LA
working
this
their
last week.
asses off.
Oh my God, they were working so hard. I couldn't even fathom the idea. I was downtown LA this week, and I was just kind of, and it's been a while since I was just kind of like in the city, and I was stuck in there because the series is in town at the same time, and I had to go to a wedding. Um, but I was like, but I had enough time because I was stuck in traffic to look around and just marvel at buildings. To turn to
It
uh,
it is amazing. Yeah.
you're 7 stories up already, and then there's these massive columns and pillars, and you're just like, no, that's we've been doing that for a long time. And I think the moment we get to a place where we can take a little bit of a rest and let some things, build some automation, build some things that are going to handle some of the heavy lifting for us, the more we can get back to, living wholesome
Netflix.
lives. Yeah.
Netflix. I'm behind on
Netflix.
Netflix, and I need this Tesla robot to help me catch up.
No, please no more Netflix.
I know. I'm
Go
like
outside.
extra cocky today, extra troublesome.
I love it. I love it. No, this is good stuff, man. I think I like I said, for me, I've gone back to a place where I'm just like, all right, I know that too much information at once can leave me honestly confused. Too much. It's
Absolutely,
not
absolutely.
clarity, that's for sure. Um, so another quote plug. Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said, "Moderation in all things, especially moderation."
No, I want that to be your thing. I want you to keep dropping these cool quotes, these traditional classic let's call them legacy quotes. Legacy quotes by John.
Legacy. Yeah,
And we'll
yeah.
have a little music, fade in, fade out. Yeah, it'll be great.
Well, I love that people thought about it before I have, because I don't need to sit about and think about it. You know what I mean? It's not gonna rack my brain. Coming up with these cool ways of simplifying the message.
Yeah, and folks like Emerson and I grew up reading Kurt Vonnegut.
Mm,
Really fell in love with his writing. Very snarky, very kind of New York angry Jew kind of stuff. I don't know, but he. Uh, yeah. So anyway, it's not all about the bleeding edge, right?
no.
It's not all about what happened yesterday, even though we have to be concerned with what happened yesterday. And I think that's one of the challenges is finding a balance where you're able to handle both. And I don't think that's easy, Like, I haven't heard anybody quote Emerson in quite a while, and so it makes me question my information sources, like who am I tuning into here? But back to the Niagara Falls, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can go left, you can go right, you can go up, you can go down, you can, get your 18 ounces of water in whatever section of that waterfall you want. Um, but who do you listen to? Because there's just so many, like, I know some people, you included, are into a number of social media platforms, and I have limited myself to basically just LinkedIn and X, formerly Twitter.
Yeah. What a
But
gift, by the way. I think about it sometimes. I'm like, if I'm not there, am I missing out? But then when I am there, I have all these complaints. Like I'm running a poll. I'm running a poll on like LinkedIn right now about like
Oh, I
TikTok. Like
didn't see it. I'll have to go look
it's
for it.
I think it's I've played with the platform for a long time. Well, probably since like it started, right? Because I'm a marketer by heart, so I've jumped into
Yes,
every.
yes, you
I was
are.
in Facebook when you needed a college, email, and I was and I was in Instagram from the start. Spotify beta team, and I think like I just jump into anything. But I recognize like I don't want to do that anymore that much, and so like
Yeah, it's a lot,
and then so I'm
like,
like, okay, well, I should be a TikTok because I should be talking to my audience and look at these
yeah.
other people doing it. But I'm like, I realize I'm like, I am just not that much of a feather ruffler. That's what I feel like TikTok is like. It's a social media platform where you're either combating, you're in conflict, you're in the trends, you're doing obnoxious dances, or you have a following and but you've already had it for a while, and I'm not someone that I can say that I've had that way. And so I look at him like I'm stuck in that like 300 view jail. The fact that it's a conversation, people are like, get out of this 200 views jail. I'm like, why is this a thing? Like, I don't understand. It's either it gets shown in front of people or it doesn't. But the idea
Right.
that every one of my posts for the last 2 months are bottomed out at this 200 tells me that there's something there that I just don't understand. And it's okay. Like, but it goes like, okay, but then now I'm putting this
Right.
time towards it. I'm putting effort towards it when I
Yeah.
could be, tripling down on LinkedIn, which I have a huge growth for. Or I do weirdly, weird flex, right? Pinterest. I just looked at a report. I had 56,000 views last
Holy
month
cow,
on
dude.
Pinterest, and I have it consistently, and I have no idea what I'm doing there.
You know, there's an old colleague of mine. We were talking social media on the phone. This was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And uh, we talked a lot about LinkedIn. We talked a lot about X. And he said, don't limit Pinterest in your field of
Oh, yeah.
view. And he's like, it has some stigma attached like everything else, but he also cited some pretty impressive numbers for
Mhm.
relatively little effort. So it's probably something that all of us should check out, right? I mean, because it's all a value ratio. If you can invest a small amount of effort and attract a lot of engagement or a lot of traffic through your website or your blog or your podcast or whatever, right?
Mhm.
But it's all about that value ratio, and so yeah, it makes me feel kind of like an idiot for not having checked out Pinterest in the past.
I think that and it's not that I want AI to tell me what to do on social media. That's not really what it is, right? It's got to be organic. Again, we go back to that human feel of AI, and I think what's important about it is to understand it still doesn't have that personality trait. It just doesn't have that human aspect to it. And so as long as that exists that way, I go, okay, like I can't
Right.
I can't ask it to do something that's going to invoke feeling at that level. It's always going to be whatever it's been trained at this level to be at surface, personally, right? So like these companies are definitely charging forward and enhancing their chatbots and like integrating distinct personalities. But
Oh, like crazy.
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
like
but
like
and it's character training, right? Quote character training that they're being employed to that are people are being employed to refine these AI behaviors. Um, but it's like for example, like social, I don't want it to tell me what to do. I would like it to, and I'm going to probably run through this, which is like at some level feed it my social media and be like, what am I like? What where should I spend my time?
oh, use it for analysis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like that's what this is. It's doing
Uh-huh,
something
uh-huh.
and then making it more efficient so that I don't have to like like chase down a rabbit hole that's pretty much subjective. If you think about it, like if I were to ask this question on Google right now, I'm going to get a slew of people's opinions that have no business giving that
A
opinion.
agree, and ads, right? The first
Yeah.
page will be ads. "Hey, God bless you, you're in the ad business, you've been
Oh
very
yeah.
successful,
Totally.
I respect that, but it's still an ad-driven, or at least was, it's transitioning now with AI, it's kinda interesting."
And so then I have to do extra work, right? Because I have to then go find those 10 articles that have subjectiveness in them, read them all, and then kind of like come to a
Ouch.
collective of what maybe it could be. And it's like that's the use case is too it's too broad. It's becomes a little,
Right. But
it's
you're a smart guy, so you use, like, a product. I'm just pulling one out of the air here, Google's Notebook LM,
yeah.
and you feed that content into Notebook LM,
Uh-huh.
and Notebook LM spits out various forms of summaries and condensation and analysis
Yeah.
that save you shit tons of time so you can go spend a few hours with your kids in the park and not be overwhelmed by trying to make a living.
There's that 100% peace of mind, happiness, my own just being getting some of my personal time back, but as well as when I am in the hot seat and I am crushing away in the mad lab of content and things that I'm focused on the right things. That I'm focused on the things that are actually my
Right,
audience is
right.
listening to. That's going to bring me new audience. That's what I mean. And I think I hope that we move past a test and try mechanism that we've been in for the last 10 years of social media and content and following the
Oh,
algorithm.
everything's an experiment, right?
Yeah, and I know it's never going to be perfect, but we could get a little bit better. And so that's my angst, and hopefully AI, starts
Yeah,
learning.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
it, but you're right. It's I think we had that same friend with those astounding numbers, and it was sometimes it'd be like, I don't even know what I'm doing, but it's happening. It's working. Like I know what I'm doing on Pinterest. If anything, I probably accommodate to the very organized and well thought out boards that I have, and it just appeals to other people. And then I also have some historic clout there because I have been on the platform for a long time. So I have like pins that are now aged at like 8, 9 years old that are driving those views. So I
You've
get it.
convinced me. I'm gonna
Huh?
go on. I'm gonna create a Pinterest account today. Seriously. And I'm going to fill it with AI generated images of dogs wearing t-shirts that say "I heart technical writing."
I think you'll get it. I think people will arrive there, and
I
well,
hope it.
because there's Google search in there too. So right, so like there is some merit to putting your content in there, and it will show up in search. So I think it is valuable. But you know what? At the same time, I find that if there's something I want to do that's like food, craft, DIY, or anything based, that's better than Google. Like that platform is better than Google. Like at the end of the day, if I want to build a new table,
Wow,
I can have 10 visual pins right off the bat of something maybe I'm trying to build faster
interesting.
than reading text on Google. Google, if you're listening, you probably should have an image grid with your social, with your option, with your articles. But that's just me talking out loud.
They're like, we have Notebook LM. We don't need anything else.
Yeah,
We're
for
done.
sure,
We're
right?
done.
But yeah, dude, check out Pinterest. Like I don't think it's that bad, and I think technical
No,
writing,
I
it's
think
right
you.
up there.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point in that. Like I've written in the past about the importance of defining and focusing like a laser on your audience. Audience, right? And everybody's audience is different. You might not realize that on the surface until you start actually creating customer profiles and prospect profiles and whoever
Yeah.
you're trying to reach for whatever purpose, right? You might
Mhm.
be for profit, you might be nonprofit, you might be an activist, you might be, none of those things. But you really have to define and target your audience. And that's one thing I like about AI is that it lets me do research on different audience segments, right?
Yeah.
And because it gets complicated, right? Is it a 22-year-old female in London, England, or is it a 58-year-old male from St. Louis? And that's just scratching the surface, right? It gets really complicated, and most of us only have insight into our own little segment, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
we we pretend to understand the other segments, but I'm not sure we really do. And I just like the speed at which AI can give me a very precise analysis of something. Again, there are hallucinations, there are imperfections in the system, but just to give me a quick overview that because I didn't have the 9 hours to go to the local library and pull out the Encyclopedia Britannica and take notes and do that. That's kind of the old way, right?
Yeah.
And you could do it, and I'm not poo-pooing that way, but but again, it took 9 hours, it took 27 hours, it was a project and it was
Hmm.
major. And to think that now we condense that into a few seconds or a slice of a minute, when we hit up Grok or Google Gemini or Microsoft Copilot or Chat GPT or whatever your favorite tool is, that's that's kind of amazing, because really that just, strategically speaking, that just points you in the right direction. All that does is say, here's where you are, right? This is a large mall, so here you are. You're next to the sneaker store, right? And the Apple store is upstairs. Okay, it just kind of tells you where you are, so you can form your next prompt, so you can form your next query. Because if you don't see the big picture, you're screwed, right?
Yeah.
Like I mean, if you cannot strategize effectively, all of your execution is crap.
Well, that's why none of this is really valuable unless, like, I think you really know how to drive it. As the same as a Ferrari. If you don't know how to drive it, or you keep it in the garage all the time,
Good
you really
point.
aren't. You're not using it to its divine purpose or the way that it was.
Divine. I like that. Yeah.
Like, I
That's
mean,
nicely said.
let's be real, like you got to drive that thing out. You got to, like I've been I'm a BMW fan. I've had some rare BMWs, and what I've learned is that if I don't take it for a walk constantly, it will break down on me fast. And so in that vein, when I understand it, it's like, oh, like I got to know what I'm doing here. I got to know how to use it. I got to know how to maintain it. Like, or I have this high level of investment that is just going to go
It
to
has a
waste.
soul.
Yeah, it
It,
has.
it
Yeah,
it has a soul and it wants to run. It's like
yeah,
I'm a
it wants to
dog
run.
and I need to go for a walk. Yeah.
It is the
I
most expensive dog you'll ever own.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny you say that because just a little diversion from AI here. When I was in college, uh, there was this place I would go get my hair cut, and one time the guy who was supposed to cut my hair was sick. I think he was out sick, and so the owner, who usually was in the back room doing whatever, tapping on his keyboard and not actually cutting hair because he's the owner,
Mm,
he came out and he cut my hair. And he owned several salons. He was a very successful guy, really nice guy. Yeah, and his name was Randy. And anyway, Randy lived in a swank neighborhood where one of his neighbors uh, built an addition on his home, and that addition included a rare Ferrari
mm.
built into like a sunroom built into the living room kind of
Okay.
thing, and it was up on this little platform. And I was like, oh, that's awesome, that's amazing. And then I looked up at Randy and I was like, but the car will never drive, like nobody will ever drive it again. It's in the
Yeah.
middle of his
Yeah.
freaking living room. Like this
Yeah.
is, and we both decided that that was kind of a bad thing to do, and that this guy was a jerk. And I know it's very judgy. It's very judgy. I'm sorry. It was like the '90s, um,
Sure.
but so yeah, I agree with you. Like a lot of smart engineers and accountants and lawyers spend a lot of time creating this product, and it goes 217 miles per hour. And if you don't use it to do that every now and again, that's just a sin against humanity. Yeah.
At least the car gods, if you will. But there's collectors out there. There's people that like nice, pretty, shiny things, and keep them in their thing. In their I guess their most precious,
The mausoleum,
form.
that's
Yeah.
eh,
But
so
yeah,
sad.
I'm not that guy. I definitely look at it and go like that.
Good,
I think
good.
like when it's the one I see that's like extremely pretty sitting in the garage. I'm like, no, that should have some road chips on it. It should be. I want to see those tires wore down because you're
Right,
blasting corners and you're
right.
having a good time.
Right.
That's a good time on wheels. Like you got to do
Yeah.
that. So yeah, I just think it's like that. You're spot on when it comes to you know not only just knowing they exist, right? Not only like is this thing called AI about to be, let's say the turnover rate and adoption rate of these things is going to be over the next 3 years in every device that you have in your hand or in your home, and it goes
Right, right. Yeah.
well. I think most of those are going to be simplified to be closed to whatever that use case is. So, for
Kind of like an
example,
enhanced Siri,
well, if
right?
there's
Like
AI
like
in my Nest thermostat, it's most likely just
exactly.
focused on my efficiency of like
Probably been
controlling
there
the.
for the last 8 years too. That's always been a really smart thermostat. I've owned a couple of them,
Okay,
and
yeah,
like this that's I'm always feel like I'm doing battle with the average American who thinks that AI is like 18 months old. And it's like, oh no, we've actually been integrating this into consumer electronics for, you know,
a long
probably well past a decade,
yes,
right?
for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, there's been things out there that have been learning and accommodating,
Exactly.
adjusting for your use case, and so the simpler they are, the easier they've been kind of like to upgrade over time because their command is simple. It's more streamlined. It's if it's the thermostat, then it really only has those that efficiency is really in the climate of your home, and more so the bigger mission, which is of course helping energy usage and stuff, right? So
Right, right.
there it is. Okay, cool, right? But when you get into your phone and it's an assistant, you're like, first of all, do you use anything that is like an assistant like as it is? Well, I can assure you that I most times when at 42 years old and being a business professional, if a friend wants to get together, I'm like, "What's your email so I can send you a calendar invite?" And they're just like, "What?" And it's like, I still have those friends. I still have friends that don't use their calendar on their phone. What is the AI assistant going to do? Nothing. It's going to be sitting around twiddling its thumbs bored because this person hasn't been using any of those features anyways. So it's like that's a whole different ball of wax of like, well, is this really valuable? Is this really going to help
Right,
a lot?
right.
It might annoy them for a while. At the end of the day, I already noticed, at least on my MacBook, a few suggestions where I'm like, you don't even know me. I even screenshotted one and sent it to a friend because it was like a response to a text, and it was like this most passive, like neutral response, and I was like, it's gonna be a while before it learns my candor and my joking, and that's per friend, so it can't give me exactly the most sarcastic and snarky
How do
response
I
that I would.
teach my AI agent that I'm an angry curmudgeon? I am an angry freaking
with
curmudgeon.
with some.
How you better give me that checkbox, biatches, because I'm not going to give you $12 a month if you don't.
Yeah, I feel like the feedback loop on that is going to have to be pretty robust. Every question, be like, "How did I do? Did I do okay? How did I do? Did I do okay?"
Here's an analysis of your performance, sir,
Yeah.
in gross
Uh,
detail.
is there anything you'd like me to adjust? Yeah, maybe with my mom, you don't give me that suggestion.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Well, you mentioned a few articles that you maybe were hyper focused on this week. I think we talked a little bit about it, the American worker, the future of work. Did you want to dive into any of that?
Yeah, let's do that before we wrap up here. This week we will have a bonus episode.
Mm.
I remember the first time we did this, it had been a while before since we'd been behind the mic, and we talked for 90 minutes. And one thing I want to do is, really try to make the podcast between 30 and 60 minutes and not just have that be marketing talk on social media, but to really strive to do that. And that's because of our target audience. And, many of them are busy professionals. They have, like us, they have children, they are engaged in their careers, they have spouses or boyfriends or girlfriends who are very engaged in their careers too. Like, life gets a little hectic and a little crazy. So I
Hmm.
want to try to truly keep them between 30 and 60 minutes. But the world of podcasting has this amazing, beautiful thing called bonus episodes. So, if we feel like going a little extra, we just slice that off and we put it into a bonus episode. So we're going to start doing more of that,
Hmm.
just to tell listeners. But yes, thank you for the segue from Ferraris and living rooms to AI and consumer tech and biz tech. That's one of the biggest contributions from Mr. John Bailey here is a really intimate understanding of business technology or biz tech and where it's going, because it's moving in so many. If you think AI is complicated, AI is just a subset of biz tech, right, John? I
Yeah.
mean, this is some heavy stuff, and it's really hard to keep up with. So that's why I'm glad you come by and talk to our listeners every week. I appreciate it. So my first article is from Sequoia Capital.
Hmm.
And Sequoia is a very influential financial institution, and people like you and me tune into them because they invest heavily in technology, and they encourage dialogue about technology and the finances and marketplace of technology. And so they recently, in early October, came out with an article called Generative AI's Act One. It's lowercase o1, and what they're doing is they're parroting OpenAI's naming convention here with some of their AI releases, and so it's a quite witty title for this, but it's and I'll drop a link to it in the show notes so it's easy for listeners to get to, but it's a really excellent analysis of what is the current marketplace for AI. It takes consumers into perspective, it takes business people into perspective. And well, I kind of like that word perspective, obviously, because once I read this article, and I'll admit I fed it to Notebook LM and listened to Daphne and Fred give it back to me, and to see their summary of the whole thing,
Yeah.
and I felt like I understood AI a lot better after doing that.
Mm,
And yeah, there's just certain moments. It might just be a post from an expert on social media, it might be an article like this, it might be a podcast episode, but there's points where the light bulb goes off for us, right? And we're all different, we all come from different perspectives and have different wiring, but this article just really did that for me. So I would recommend, if you are an IT or marketing or sales or any business professional and you care about your career and you're trying to understand AI, and a lot of people are at that stage of, should I even care?
yeah.
Right? They're not getting into the thick of it yet. They're just like, is this even real? Is
Yeah.
this just an NFT? Is this just, some cryptocurrency that's going to put
Mhm.
the CEO in prison for, like, I think people are intelligent to be very cynical about what's going on.
Mhm.
But this Sequoia Capital report, they're a very reputable organization, and it puts things in perspective and it takes the hype away. I guess, we talked about Niagara Falls earlier, right? And I'm always trying to take the hype away and just get down to the freaking reality of this thing, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm tired of the doomers, and I'm tired of the utopia fanboys, and I'm just trying to find that middle ground where rational, successful Americans thrive, right? And this article can definitely help you do it. The second article is from the Brookings Institution, 9 out of 10 times misquoted as the Brookings Institute. No, it's an institution actually.
Mhm.
And it's called, again, link in the show notes. It's called Generative AI, the American Worker and the Future of Work. And uh, this article really, it's a report technically, really opened my eyes, because I totally understand the fears of American workers, particularly knowledge workers and keyboard monkeys, regardless of whether you're a software developer or a technical writer or a marketing expert or sales, right? HR, but they're all going to be, if you have that gut feel that you are going to be dramatically impacted in the next 5 to 10 years by AI, I believe you are correct.
Mhm.
And I think reports like this from the Brookings Institution help us avoid the fringe thinkers, the zealots, right? The information zealots, and to, latch on to, none of us has a crystal ball, right? We don't know what's going to happen. We talk about 5 to 10 years, 5 to 10 years. We love to talk like that, right? A lot of hyperbole. But these two reports, in my opinion, really, like, over the last week, I feel like I've kind of been a lot more grounded in my perception of AI for having discovered these reports.
I mean, that's amazing. I briefly looked through them as you mentioned them, and yeah, I would say that the one from Sequoia Capital, definitely if you're in like a customer focused solution, and or you're in startup, and um, you have something that's like unique and more specialized for consumers. I think this was a really good article so far, is what I've dug into. And then yeah, the American worker, the future of work. I like where this one, the report's going.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to dive into both of them, and probably write up a little bit more thorough thoughts on my LinkedIn articles. But these are good. These are good. So check them out for sure.
Yeah, and I'm kind of trying to tune in to more sources like this. So in the future, I'll be sharing with listeners just more of this type of information where I think it strikes a nice middle ground, right? Where it
Hmm.
takes a neutral, more objective. In technical writing, we're always talking about objectivity. In fact, it's one of my 8 pillars of technical writing
Hmm.
is objectivity, right? And you can stand back and think about that for many hours and many days and many months, right? The
Yeah.
objectivity, what does that really mean, right? And well, it means diligence and rigor. It is very difficult to obtain objectivity because you have to collect so much information and you have to filter that information. Then you have to say this is overly biased, and so I'm not going to pay attention to it, right? Because again, Niagara Falls, I only have so much time. I have to decide where I put that time.
Hmm. Hmm.
So anyway, I'm going to try to bring more content like this to listeners because I think it helps us get a more rational understanding of what AI really is and the impact it's going to have on our lives and careers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, yeah, this is good stuff. I think for me, like you said, biz tech things I'm focused on are generally things that are helping my job a little easier, or help people that I work with, right? Like, I'm always helping, now more than ever, businesses understand, or entrepreneurs, or even executives, or anybody, like, understand AI and what it can do for them, and certain tools. I mean, I still have clients, customers that are honestly still rolling into just a project management software, let alone that now there's
Right,
AI.
right.
Yeah, there's these AI enhancements that are coming and or already being incorporated, right? So
Right, right.
I'm,
AI, we just
yeah,
got Excel.
yeah,
Yeah, we just started using spreadsheets and got off paper.
yeah. We
So
just did it. We have a nice formula driven sheet that does, you put a number in and it changes all the other numbers. Like, no, it's yeah, we're
exactly.
advancing. We're advancing at high rate. So I'm looking at that stuff. I'm looking at
Nice, nice, yeah.
and so, like, hopefully, and I usually, now I'm accommodating this with a write up. If you follow me on LinkedIn, or probably I'll cross post it on Twitter, but going into more deep in depth of these things, right? Like, I'm following Microsoft's autonomous AI agents. I'm following Salesforce Agent Force. That's interesting for everybody
Yeah,
out there for sales
Salesforce
and
versus
CRM.
Microsoft with AI
Hmm.
agents. It's exciting, peeps. Pay attention. John's on to something important here.
Yeah, and then just those big tech giants, Apple and the Alphabet gang, and and I think what we're gonna see is there's been a shakeup in the investment and startup world, and I think, if you're in that sector, definitely look at AI startups and really what their valuations are versus
Right.
traditional startups, because those are getting more attention right now. But I like how complicated AI is. Also, to learn about somebody's AI startup is even more complex, right? Where sometimes it's really based on theory, and so do your due diligence, look at these cool companies, but and then I think the last part I would say is the people that are making the hardware to support these things. Like Nvidia, right?
Nvidia.
Um,
They're worth more than Apple now. They're
or
worth more
Taiwan
than
Semiconductor.
Microsoft.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
or Taiwan Semiconductor. I remember I was knee deep and a huge fanboy of Taiwan Semiconductor, TSMC, like in the 2019. I even invested in them for a few years, and they did very well. And I'm just amazed
That's
that
a
I
dedicated nerd.
oh yeah.
When you
Oh,
invest, you put your money where your mouth is, literally.
oh, I'm kicking myself in the pants that I moved away from their stock, because they're just doing so well at competing, and because they make one of the biggest ones, which is Huawei's, the phone that's in China,
Right, right.
that has like a like
It's stealing
photo
market share
technology.
from the iPhone. Yeah,
Oh
Apple's like
yeah.
sweating. Yeah.
Well, what's crazy is if you ever actually have seen one of these, and I'll be at CES this year, and they usually are unrolling some cool new thing that they're doing with that phone. It's
Right.
pretty. It's a pretty. It's a very nice phone, with Leica photo technology. I mean, it's
Oh, sweet.
if I wasn't an Apple fanboy already, I would have already jumped. Let's
Right,
just say
right. And
that.
once you're in the universe and you've got the watch and all the other stuff and it all talks to each other, it's hard to jump out, right?
Yeah, how can I not hand off from my messages on my phone to my it's
Exactly.
it's an unwinding. I don't It'd be painful at this juncture, but
Exactly. Yes, yes. I like being able to answer the phone on my watch if I
yeah,
have to, right? And
yeah.
there's been a few times where I've had to, and it got the job done, right? I brought home the half gallon of milk, for the next morning
I
or
love
whatever, right? Like, yeah,
yes,
so anyway, yeah, we'll
cool
stop
stuff.
being Apple fanboys here because all the Android listeners have nodded off at this point.
Hey man, I got a lot of stuff to do in the day, so the simpler, the more synergistic you make it, you'll get my vote. It doesn't have to be Apple, just the other ones could step up their
Agree.
game as well.
Yeah, it doesn't. I'm not an Apple fanboy. I'm just not a hater either, and I've just given them a lot of money over the years for
Right.
electronics for me and my family. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I will never forget the first time that I took a phone call on my MacBook.
Yeah.
And in fact, it scared me. I was
Yeah.
like, "What's going on here? Like, is it melting down? What is this?" And yeah, I just you click, and suddenly I'm talking to my mom or my boss or whoever the heck it was, right? And yeah, pretty
Cool stuff.
cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can do that on Android, and you can do that on other systems. And yeah, I recently wrote an article about the Internet of Things, and boy, there's an area where making all these devices talk to each other might eventually escalate out of ecosystems, right? But
Mm.
obviously, companies like Apple are kind of into ecosystems, and they profit heavily off of them and keeping you on, on this side instead of the other side. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that goes because IoT has been around for a very long time, and it won't go away, but it 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 hasn't quite taken over yet either. So it's going to be interesting to see where their standards go.
Well, yeah, the complications and what gets difficult in that is just the elephant in the room when it comes to the Internet of Things is how secure it is, and I think that's where
Good
you're
point. Yeah.
we pay attention to what things are connecting to what and how, and what, whether or not it's vulnerable, whether or not it's an open channel, whether or not, even if you're not connected to the Wi-Fi in the public airport, which I would caution against. If you have hotspot, do it on your phone, don't do it on the public Wi-Fi, because at the end of
Right.
the day,
True.
there's just some nefarious people out there just trying to capitalize on what they can get from you, and any more different than a pickpocket kind of person, right? Like, you just kind of
Right.
have to. And I think that that's where I at least follow the conversation more when it comes to the Internet of Things and companies and the data race. It's more or less like, okay, well, how are you managing and I'm using nerd word here, peripherals? How are you managing the way that my different things are connecting all at once? And is there a hole? Is there a back door that I'm opening up that I'm not aware of? And so I think that's at least where I would say,
Yeah.
in the
Good point.
confusion of everything, it's follow who's like at least making the most secure pathway, even if it's limited, even if it seems like it's very like to keep you in that bubble or ecosystem. It might be because it's a little safer, in the world of data. And oh my god, I just saw
Right.
the headline about how Delta's going to push blame onto CrowdStrike and that whole thing, and it's a big lawsuit, and I'm just like, that's why, right there. That's why, because, and I'm not sure what's going to
A
come out of that, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, if,
lot of lawsuits this week, dude.
oh man, it's like, why are we
Copyright
suing?
infringement. Yeah. Perplexity and Tesla, and everybody's getting sued, and it's
Hmm.
crazy.
Yeah, so fun stuff. But yeah, in tech, it's definitely about security, and so that'd
Yeah.
be what I watch in that. And I liked your Internet of Thing article. Actually, it's very, very good. Go check that out if you're on LinkedIn, and read that, especially if you're working on something that might be part of that. And I'd say if you're in that, you're probably already learning a lot about that, or you already have. But it doesn't hurt to get other perspectives. So that was a good article, Curt.
Oh, cool. Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate the feedback. Well, we're climbing up on an hour here, so we're going to go ahead and end the podcast. But this week we're going to do our first bonus episode, and
Mm,
that's going to be where you and I just kind of keep talking for 30 or 40 minutes, or whatever.
cool.
But because it's really cool that podcasting has this whole bonus episode thing built into it, right? It's a very simple system when you think about it, but
Mhm.
it works. It really is. It's another tool in the toolbox, right? So this week we're going to take advantage of it. So I want to thank everybody for listening. We are a new podcast called Curt and John Talk Tech and AI, and we typically record. Sometimes life gets in the way, right? We all have kids, we all have busy careers, we all have leaves to clean off our driveway. But sometimes, but we typically do it Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern and 10 a.m. Pacific as a live capture event on X, formerly Twitter, Spaces. And that's nice because it gives people an opportunity to talk to us and step up to the mic if they want to. But the real goal of this whole effort is the podcast that we release, and it's on Spotify, it's on iHeart, it's on Apple Podcasts, it's on YouTube, it's everywhere, right? Everywhere people give a darn about podcasts, it's there. So you can find it on your favorite platform. But hopefully, we don't waste your time in terms of talking about business technology, consumer electronics, and artificial intelligence.